Welcome to a very special edition of the New York Times Sports. Today, I am joined by Yaron Weitzman, who is an author. He just came out with a book called A Hollywood Ending, which is about LeBron James and the Lakers and everything like that. Last week went a little bit viral in the Jewish community because of an excerpt from the book about the Luka Doncic trade, and I want to go through all of that with you today. Yaron, thank you so much for coming on and joining us on the pod.
Thanks for bringing me on. I'm excited. This is different than my the other shows I've done.
Normally, what kind of shows are you doing? Give me a little bit of a background.
We did a lot of sports specific. I don't know if like the usually there's more interest in like what's LeBron like, not what's the deal with sundown times, and that's not really a question I'm going to be asked often. But I'm happy to attack that here.
I think that more people have to know about what each individual NBA player feels about the sundown times on Friday nights. I would like to know. I also would love to start to cross database the CAA sports roster with the like the CAA sports agent roster with the roster of Temple Sinai, in Beverly Hills or whatever. Which seems to be like a little bit about like where this confusion kind of came from. Before we talk about the Luka Doncic stuff, I just want to give you a chance to talk about just like your background. How did you end up writing the book, and then a little bit about the book.
So I'm a sports writer. That's what I do. I wrote a book on the Sixers and the quote-unquote process, which if you're a sports fan, if you're not a sports fan, it's basically that the team was built to lose so they could get draft picks for a few years. That was a few years ago. And I'm a
Jet fan, and the Jets practice something that I like to call, which is processless process.
I like it.
Every year we do as bad as possible, but there's no, real forethought past that.
I'm also a Jets fan, by the way, so I feel your pain on that one. Is that an oi? Yeah, that's the proper response.
It's a big oi.
So where were we? Okay, yeah. So I was writing another book and basically decided that I felt like the LeBron Lakers were. That's what the book's about. I kind of bill it as the inside story, behind the scenes. If you want to know what these years were actually like, this is the story. And I felt like there was uncovered territory there, the things we could unpack.
What did you feel like was uncovered?
Just LeBron and the Lakers are both entities are really good at controlling and dictating narratives about them, which, power to them. That's great. That's their skill. But I feel like there's a lot of stuff that we could unpack in terms of what that relationship actually looked like and who makes the decisions. I like to just say, I like to focus, try to write about or see if you can learn about what's happening behind the scenes that we don't see that impacts what happens on the court that we do see. And I think there was a lot to uncover there.
Who has more power in their dealings, do you think, LeBron or the Lakers?
See, that was most people think, right? Everyone thinks LeBron runs it, and that was one of the interesting things that I learned early on, that it was not necessarily the case, that LeBron, the Lakers overrule him on a lot of things that he wanted.
So the Lakers were just like, who's really talented? Bronny James. We love him for his skills, and we're definitely not just letting him on the team because his dad happens to be, the moneymaker for all of us. That doesn't come into it at all, correct?
Listen, that's definitely the counter, and I laugh because, so we had an excerpt run on Vanity Fair about sort of and I think it was about Bronny and LeBron, and the title was sort of how Bronny ended up with the Lakers or something like that. And I think every comment, and that wasn't our title, but every comment was because his dad's LeBron, because his dad's LeBron.
How did Lachlan Murdoch get his job?
Yeah, right. Hard work. But there are examples like, okay, so LeBron gets there, it's 2019, he wants the Lakers to hire a coach, Ty Lue, and they say no, right? And that was his second year there. So there are examples like that along the way.
Okay, but is that overall? I'll put it this way: the Bronny stuff was such an outward-facing, like you've got to be kidding me, kind of thing. I also would love to just, this is the conspiracy theory about like what we're about to talk about the Luka trade and stuff like that. I mentioned in my video, which by the way, I forgot to tag you in. I tagged you, but I did forget to mention you in it. I did feel bad about that later on because, only 90 seconds there, but
brought us together. It's all good.
Exactly. There's a theory out there that, when the trade happened, everyone was like, man, Nico Harrison is a moron. Nico Harrison is a GM from the Mavericks. The trade, for those unfamiliar, Luka goes to the Lakers. It's one of the most outsized, lopsided trades, arguably in sporting history. But the outcome from that was that people got really angry at Nico Harrison, and then a couple months later, the Mavericks end up getting the first overall draft pick against all odds. It wasn't like they were the first in line to. It made, and the rumor, or I remember after it happened, people talking about that in the room, people were laughing at the fact that they had gotten the first round pick because it's done via lottery. And the NBA has a history of occasional scandals involving NBA lotteries. The way it works at home, just once again, is that depending on your record, the worse your record was the year before, the more of a percentage chance you have at getting the first overall draft pick. So the Mavericks didn't have the worst overall record. It was a long shot that they were going to get the first pick, but they ended up getting the first pick. And the big notable thing is that last year there was a guy, Cooper Flagg, who was like one of the best prospects coming out of the draft in a very, very, long time, or debatable, whatever. It was a big guy, big macher in the Duke, basketball community. So a big macher in the Duke community. So the big question was, did the Mavericks send Luka Doncic to the Lakers in an an outsized deal, knowing that the NBA was going to end up giving them a first-round draft pick later on? What do you think on that?
So, it's like Godwin's law. What's like the most likely answer is usually the one that the most simple, and the most simple one is that Nico Harrison's not very good at his job, right? Like that's the most simple. I listen. I get the conspiracy stuff. Not to get too serious, like we kind of talked about this almost offline for a minute, but like I do find sometimes with the conspiracy stuff, I try to be extra careful with it because that heads you down a road where, we all know where that leads is it's the Jews' fault, right? Eventually, like a few YouTube swipes away from that.
To be honest, this was the Adelsons shipping off, Luka Doncic over to, the Lakers using CAA Sports' Steve Human.
There you go. But there would be, if you're carrying that through, it would be to build the team around Kyrie Irving, right? So that might be a little, that might throw a wrench in that theory there.
Yeah, but there's no way that the Adelsons or whoever, or Nico, was Nico really more in on Luka than Kyrie? Sorry, was Nico really more in on Kyrie than Luka long term?
So it was more in on Anthony Davis than Luka long term. I mean, which is again like it's crazy. It's crazy. But I mean, it could go like he traded for Kyrie. I think he was also an example of somebody feeling themselves a little bit. Like he traded for Kyrie. So after all the anti-Semitic stuff with Kyrie was toxic. Nobody wants him. Dallas trades for him. Give up nothing. I don't know what they gave up. They gave up nothing basically. Yeah. To get him. He plays great. He plays great, and he trades for him. One of the things he says is like, the Mavericks GM was a longtime Nike executive, so he had all these relationships. And one of the things he was saying is, no, I know Kyrie from our years together. I see something in him, right? That's different. So my armchair psychology is also like, I think he started drinking his golden Kool-Aid, where like believing that I can see something that others can't. And look, like the Kyrie trade, I got killed for, and it worked out great. Now look what's going to happen. I know Anthony Davis, who I was close with in Nike times. I know he's a special player, and I know that Luka's fat. I mean, they basically went out on a 6-month tour calling him fat, right? Just through the reports. Like, we know he's fat and out of shape and doesn't play defense, and you can't win with him. So
yeah, but now he's in LA. Everyone's on Ozempic in LA. That's why he slimmed down, and he's doing the Manjaro workout out there. It looks like.
I mean, that is the problem also, because if you do, it's a bad 4D chess, right? Because if you do the thing where you trade someone and call them fat, you're basically guaranteeing that they're going to be skinny in 6 months. Like that, they have no choice. They have no choice. So that's bad 4D chess on that point.
He's doing the Khloe Kardashian revenge body thing right now, and it's pretty incredible. So let's talk about the trade itself here.
Sure.
The story that you broke, or the excerpt from your book, is about how the trade was actually put on pause. Potentially, also, I will say, could have canceled it completely. In some, I can see a series of events happening.
You never know what happens if you leave things open, right?
And it was because it happened on Shabbat. So just like walk me through on how Shabbat played into this Luka Doncic trade.
Okay, so as you were saying, the background here is this is a crazy trade. The idea that the Mavericks would trade Luka Doncic is insane. So they start with they approach the Lakers about it, because the Lakers wouldn't even dream about that. They approach the Lakers about it, and then they need it like 3 weeks earlier in Dallas. There's pictures of Nico Harrison, Rob Pelinka having like secret coffee in a coffee shop near the arena. And then they're saying, this is what we're interested in. What do you think? Lakers are kind of be like, we think so. But obviously they're jumping through. You have to play your negotiation hand a little bit. And then the thing is, though, you have to keep it quiet. That's what Dal's saying. You have to keep it quiet because if it gets out, this is a huge issue. Because then if it gets out, his value's tanked. He's going to want to be traded. It just creates a whole mess. The Lakers obviously are they're incentivized to keep it quiet because fewer teams in who know that he's available. You can lowball. You don't have to. You're negotiating against yourselves, right?
Yeah, it was funny that the reaction from like Charlotte Hornet fan just being like, "Oh, we could have got him." I mean, like, realistically, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, where the Lakers were exposed to a deal where they're like, "Oh my God, like we got to get this right now." Yeah,
right. And they mask it. Rob Pelinka, who is the Lakers general manager, was Kobe Bryant's longtime agent. Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Mavericks, was Kobe Bryant's longtime guy at Nike. So the two of them had this long relationship. And this goes back to like how everything in NBA world seems to run through the Lakers, right, in some way. The two others have this long relationship, and Pelinka basically, he presents it as like, for my good friend Nico, I'll keep it quiet. I got you. Don't worry, right? Which I'm sure, but also he's running back, being like, this is amazing,
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it's taking a long time, going back and forth. They need to talk, draft picks, and can we negotiate? We can't negotiate. He might be a free agent. So what can we do? Okay, whatever. On a Friday, the trade's basically agreed to, but to pull off the trade, for the trade to actually be agreed to, NBA has all these weird salary cap rules, and honestly, I've given up. Even I'm a reporter, I've given up following them. I don't care anymore.
It doesn't exist. The salary cap is a hoax. The salary cap,
right.
The Fed.
Right, no, it's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is, so it's nonsense. But the point is, like, the TLDR version is, like, the Mavericks need to do another trade with another team so they can get some guys back to line things up. One of the guys on the other teams is Patty Mills, who's on the Clippers. It might have been another team had to do the trade with him. It doesn't matter. Basically, this player, Patty Mills, who's involved in this trade that would be tangentially connected to this, but that the Luka trade can't go through until his Patty Mills trade goes through. He has his agent. He's a client of CAA.
Wait, can we pause for a second on Patty Mills? Talk to me about Patty Mills. Like,
which part?
When I saw that name, it was like Patty Mills, and then you Google him, and you're like, oh yeah, he's involved here. Tell me about, just let the audience know about like Patty Mills.
Patty Mills was like so once upon a time he was this really fun. Good scoring. He's from Australia. Good scoring guard who like was on the Spurs to sort of fit into this ethos the Spurs have of like we're the United Nations of basketball and look how we play. We have guys from every country and all that. And then when you get branded as a Spurs guy, you can kind of survive in the NBA for like 25 more years because everyone assumes you're smarter and like just know how to play. I'm gonna again. If you ask me what team he's on now, I might. It's on the Hawks. Maybe I think he's been on 9 teams in the past 4 years. Right? He's just gone everywhere. Just So at that point, he's so smart. He's like a savvy veteran. It's always good to have a savvy veteran around who's from Australia.
We're trading for Greg Popovich here. This is
that's basically what it is. That's basically what it is.
Has there been situations where someone would leave the Spurs and then they show up there and then the entire team is looking at them like, so what do we do? And then they're just like, I played for him for half a year. What do you want me to do here?
I mean, that's the funniest part. There are so many people around the NBA. It's a little bit, not as much now, but like there was a real stretch where like if you smelled Greg Popovich once, you would get a head coaching job. And like there are other people in the NBA who just grew so sick of the Spurs exceptionalism and like what that meant, and everyone trying to copy it. Pretty funny. Okay, so fine. So that's the Patty Mills version summary. Patty Mills' agent is this guy named Stephen Human, who is a Shomer Shabbat Jew in Los Angeles. And he represents Patty Mills. He works for CAA. Now, most of the time, I don't know this, but I'm pretty sure, or my understanding is like, in general, they have a setup where CAA's got a lot of agents, right? So if you can't reach Steve Human, I'm sure, I don't know the official protocol, but there's some protocol involved where like, I guess we know where he lives, but even past that, like somebody else can get on the phone for an hour or whatever. What was different here? Yeah, you have a question?
No. That was it. So the little that I've looked into this is that there are situations where you can have like your like assistant kind of like give like the soft check through, or if it's just like a little thing, you can just be like, whatever. It's not like that big of a deal. Especially, I mean, for Orthodox Jews, I don't know what your background is at all, but like I was born and raised Orthodox. Like okay, so. Look at us, 2 modern Orthodox yeshiva kids talking basketball on a podcast. But like they use, the setups in there. There's like loopholes where the assistant or someone else, gets delegated work.
Correct. And I think also, right, and I assume in the agency they have a setup too where it's like, okay, we know Steve's out, but like, again, CAA is not a one-person shop, right? Like there's a million people in there. Okay. Yeah. The difference here, what makes this so funny and random, is that every NBA player, the collective bargaining rules between the union and the league is that every player has a contract, and every contract has a single agent as the agent of record on that contract. It doesn't matter who you work for, how big your agency, you have one agent of record on your contract. And in this rule, in this point, in the case of this Patty Mills trade, it was the agent of record had to sign off on the deal officially. That was the only way to go about it because he was in the last year of a contract, and you had to like assert that there was no underhand. Again, it doesn't really matter why.
Is that sorry? Just on that specific note, is that like the rule? Like if it's last year of a contract, like you have to have your agent sign off because you don't want to have because he has to verify that you're not going to sign another contract after this contract. Or
you're affirming that nothing was under, even though probably halftime is false, but you're affirming that nothing underhand, like nothing was agreed to under the table. The idea being that like if I'm trading for you in the last year of contract, you know, in theory, then we could, you know, you're trading for me, but we have a wink that says, you know, I'm expiring, but after this, you know.
Is this did Kawhi Leonard's agent sign one of these? $38 million under the table or whatever.
They didn't want to sign it because they knew it would get in the way of trees. They didn't want to waste paper because
we're all environmentalists here.
Yeah,
me, them, Taylor Swift. You know, we all care about the environment.
Exactly, all care, so they couldn't sign it. So
so there is like a clause like end of a contract. End of contract just for whatever reason it needs to get signed off by his like agent that is signed on to this like piece of paper. Now. So, and Stephen Human is the guy that signed on to the piece of paper. So and the deal comes through on Shabbos. Stephen Human is, at, Temple Sinai in Beverly Hills or whatever, has no idea this is happening.
Correct. And it's funny because if people remember the trade happened Saturday night. It happened like midnight-ish East Coast time on Saturday night. And he's in LA, so they had to wait for that. And then what was also funny is the Lakers were playing the Knicks. The Lakers were on East Coast time, so they're playing, but they have to wait for West Coast to finish off, like the clock, sundown the West Coast. Yeah. They're happening, and they're trying to. And this is to your point where it's like you don't want to over dramatize where like it almost got in the way, but you start setting up where like things could go wrong, or maybe a player finds out, maybe Anthony Davis finds out about the deal, and Rich Paul makes a whole thing. Like just when you have this this span of opportunity, like things can happen, right? Shit can happen, basically, for lack of a better term. And it was interesting. They had to, so they basically had a small window. They had to squeeze the trade. They wanted to do it after the Knicks game. They didn't want to do it before the game. They wanted to do it after the game, but before everyone left on their road trip on the flight the next day. Like there was a real small window for them to pull this through. Did
anyone at the NBA? I mean, on either team, when did they realize that Stevie Human is going to be like an issue here?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I'm assuming, honestly, I'm assuming it's like in real time. That's what I'm guessing.
I got to know then. Was there a moment where like Nico Harrison was on myzmonim.com?
That's a good.
He's calling up Rob Pelinka. He's like, hey, Rob, when's Chatzos? Do we know when the Chatzos is and stuff?
Well, he got the Chabad. Chabad is the first result. We all know. Yeah. We look up the time, so he got the Chabad result probably.
But I guarantee you that there had to have been someone big in one of these sites that is Googling like when is Shabbos over, and then learning about like the 3 stars, and then being like, does anyone know if Stephen Human Paskins by 3 stars, or was he just going by like the timer out there? That is fascinating.
My house we joke. We need you need the Ramaz KJ calendar. That's the one that ends that ends like 4 minutes earlier. So that maybe he's got to get that in his fridge.
What I want is then for like Chabad of Dallas, puts out their thing, and then you got KJ in LA, and you have Pelinka and Nico Harris. Nico Harris is like, down here we paskin by the Chabad, and then you got Rob Pelinka just being like, those Goyim at Chabad? No. Rav Shachter. He says the Lakers paskin by Rav Shachter. Okay, we've made that very clear.
See, this is what I was saying. This is I had a blind spot and I failed as a reporter because I normally don't get asked these questions. I did not dig into this enough while doing the book, and for that I sincerely apologize.
My buddy is kind of like furious with you. My question for this though is that going forward, like people now know is like, if you got to talk to Stephen Human, you got to wait until after Shabbos. Like, is this going to affect contracts potentially going forward, where they're going to view this and be like, we got to make sure that the non-Shomer Shabbos guy is the last one that touches the contract.
So it is interesting. I don't think, because like people knew in the world, right? Like, and what I'm guessing is, I think probably also because Patty Mills, the way he gets thrown into a contract, like he's kind of like a last minute guy. We're just grabbing him. Like it wasn't a trading for Patty Mills. Where if it was, I don't know who Steve Human's best clients are. Like I imagine whoever he's the main guy. If it's a real star, it's known. Like the GM of that team knows. We don't call him on Friday night, right? That's just like not a. Whereas Patty Mills, when you're doing those like salary matching trades, it's almost like it's like a grab bag. You're just kind of giving like, oh, I'll grab the $3 million here. Who does that belong to? Oh, Patty Mills. Like, who's he with, right? It's kind of more reverse engineering.
Huh. This is interesting. Is there... I'm sorry, I had one more question here with it. With Patty... just went out the ear. Anyways, okay, we've talked enough about... I got nothing else to say about this specific thing here. My big question, though, we mentioned this in the beginning, with the Lakers and Mavericks and stuff like that. It wasn't, Nico Harris. This was Nico Harrison potentially being dumb. Whatever. When the Mavericks got that first round pick, though, does that not the long shotness of it, like it's so against the odds that they got that first round pick? Does that not at all come into question when you're like, it wasn't a conspiracy, just Nico Harrison being dumb? This would have to be Nico Harrison being dumb and then like an against an all odds kind of thing happening. I
know you're saying. I'm still with it. I'm still there.
Got it.
This isn't even me being like, serious journalist guy. It's not even that. My sports fandom has never been built on the conspiracy stuff. Like I just never, even with refs or whatever, like any of that stuff. So.
Are you a Knicks fan?
I grew up a Knicks fan, yeah.
How do you think Patrick Ewing got on the Knicks?
Well, I know, frozen envelopes, right? Frozen envelopes.
There it is. Last question, all this. Stephen Human, Shabbos ends, he picks up his phone. He learns about the trade for the first time when he picks up his phone, correct?
Correct, yeah, because he's like 10... He's not Luka or Clutch or Anthony Davis. Like, it's not his guy. So it's probably, he's probably learning about the first time, yeah.
That must have been one of the most electric moments. He's picking up his phone. For a minute, he's probably like, wait, we're trading Luka Doncic for Patty Mills? Like, there had to have been, some moment where, like, it kind of washes over him. Did you talk to him at all, like, for the book?
I did. No, he didn't. It's funny. He's pretty private, which is, I guess, ironic now. But he's he's kind of private about this stuff. How do I phrase this? He was okay with the story being out there, but I don't think he was interested in doing a full-on interview. Like, I don't know if he'd come on with you to break down all these questions. I wish he would, because it'd be great to ask him a million questions. But, I don't know more than that.
I'm beyond curious about how this thing...
right.
Like, when I saw the article, like, it's one of those things where, as like someone that grew up like, or religious, I'm not religious anymore, but like, I remember these exact problems. Like, I remember, if like we had to go somewhere, or here's the big issue in the Levine household was Ranger playoff games on Friday nights. Like, what do you do? So like what I would occasionally do, you negotiate with my dad to be like, we'll leave the TV on and we'll leave the volume on 0, and then we'll leave it, and then we won't go in the basement. We won't go in the living room for the rest of the Shabbos and stuff. So it's one of those like Jew in a modern world stories where it was so crazy seeing this like Shabbos thing be attached to, in one of the most unlikely places of all time, the Luka Doncic, Laker trade. Just crazy.
And it's also, you can relate, right? Everyone, and I'm so much about, but like any sports fan has had it where like you open a paper, it's like, wait, what happened last night? Or kids especially, right? As kids especially, before anyone, the phones, whatever, all that stuff. Now it sort of times makes its way around. Yeah. Anyway.
The sports section for Orthodox kids, I'm curious how much my audience like doesn't know this, but like the sports section for Orthodox kids, you read that like Talmud. Friday night to Saturday night, there's nothing doing in the Levine household, at least. Yep. Saturday morning, so Friday night, you've exhausted all of your reading material from the week. Saturday morning, the paper comes in, and then all you're doing is just rereading the sports section over and over and over and over, and analyzing every single divisional standing, a place.
The box scores, you are so in on the box scores and like who's fourth in home runs in the National League, because like what else you have to do?
Absolutely crazy, just because of pure boredom. There's like nothing else going on. Now I'm kind of curious. Do you know of any other situations where there's been a trade or something that has been held up because of Shabbos?
I don't. I don't know if there has. I don't know either. I don't know either way. So I don't.
kind of curious about this. Anyways, Yaron, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. A Hollywood Ending is out now. Is it out now?
It is out now. It is out now.
Where can people get it? Amazon?
Anywhere you read. I used to joke we used to have to support like small bookstores, local bookstores, and now I'm like support Amazon against ChatGPT. You know,
I have a friend. Matt Broussard, who's a comic in New York, and he has this joke about how like he decided to support small business by going to the Best Buy on 86th.
It is.
Right? Yeah,
really
I'm going to the little man because I'm not buying it off of Amazon. But meanwhile, it's just like Whole Foods.
Exactly.
Anyways, so check it out now. And November 20th. I'm going to be in Boston. If you're around in Boston, everyone, check out there. Toronto, I'll be later this week, and check out all those other tour dates. But aside from that, have a good one, guys. We'll see you later.